She came home at 3 a.m. smelling like another man's skin and told me, "You're just being insecure." So I followed her, filmed everything, and confronted her right in front of her new man. For most of our 3-year relationship, I was convinced I had everything a man could ever want. Hannah and I weren't some picture-perfect couple you'd see in a movie, but we were ours. A comfortable, familiar kind of love that made even the ordinary feel special. We laughed at ridiculous shows, took spontaneous trips just to satisfy a craving for ice cream, and no matter how long or stressful the day had been, we always said goodnight with a kiss. She used to look at me like I was her entire universe. "You're my life, Jack. I'd never leave you," she would say, and I believed her without a doubt. We moved in together after a year, and life felt like it had settled into something beautiful, something solid. There was trust between us, comfort, love, or at least that's what I thought. But about 5 months ago, something shifted. At first, it was so subtle that I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Just small, almost unnoticeable differences. She stopped reaching out during the day like she used to. When I asked about it, she said work had become overwhelming. I didn't want to seem controlling, so I let it go. But then, the late nights started to creep in. At first, she'd stay out late once or twice a week. Then it became more frequent. She'd walk through the door well after midnight. I'd ask where she had been, and her answers were always vague. Out. Or with friends. No names, no explanations. Just enough to shut down any questions. At first, I thought maybe she was just going through something. Stress can make us distant sometimes, right? But the way she looked at me began to change. That warm, soft glance was replaced with a kind of emotional vacancy. Our conversations became brief, often one-sided. She'd barely acknowledge me when I asked about her day. And then, one night, it all crashed down on me. She walked through the door at exactly 3:04 a.m. I know the time because I had been lying there in the dark, staring at the clock, waiting. When she came in, I could smell it before I even turned on the lamp. A scent I didn't recognize. It wasn't her usual body spray or shampoo. It was sharp, expensive, and clearly not mine. It was him, some other man. My chest tightened. She slumped onto the couch, kicked off her heels, and refused to meet my eyes. I sat up slowly, feeling my pulse in my throat. "Where were you?" I asked. She didn't even blink. "Out." "With who?" I pressed. That's when she rolled her eyes, brushed her hair behind her ear, and said with that same cold, dismissive tone she'd been using lately, "Jack, don't start. You're just being insecure." That line, that exact line lodged itself in my head and wouldn't let go. It wasn't just rude. It was ice cold. Like I was some stranger prying into her life, asking questions I had no right to ask. I didn't argue. I didn't shout. I just sat there, silently, and went back to bed. But I didn't sleep. That smell, that man's scent, hung in the air, wrapping around me like a fog I couldn't escape. Her tone, her body language, the complete lack of guilt in her eyes. It all played in my head like a puzzle I was desperate not to solve. In the days that followed, I tried to talk myself out of it. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe it was just work. Maybe she was going through something and didn't know how to talk about it. But the more I tried to reason with myself, the louder that one sentence echoed inside me. "You're just being insecure." I started noticing more. Her phone was always face down. She never showed me funny messages or work gossip anymore. The password was changed. Notifications hidden. I stopped asking where she was going, but I started watching. She thought she was being careful. She wasn't careful enough. Then one evening, she said she had a dinner with coworkers, but she didn't dress like someone meeting their team for a casual meal. She wore a dress I hadn't seen in months. Heels, makeup, perfume that had been sitting on the back of our shelf, collecting dust. Something in me snapped. Not in anger, not yet, but in resolve. I didn't confront her. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I just decided I needed to know the truth. So I made a plan. That following Friday, she said she was meeting a client after work. "A late meeting," she added casually while grabbing her coat. not even glancing at me. "Don't wait up." I nodded like I wasn't listening, like I didn't already have the day off, like I hadn't already planned everything. I waited until she left, then grabbed my keys and got in my car. I gave her a few minutes before following. I knew where her office was. If she was telling the truth, she'd be heading downtown toward the business district. But she didn't. She took a series of side streets and ended up in a shopping plaza that had no law firms.
No clients.
Just upscale restaurants, boutiques, and bars. I parked 2 rows over and waited. 10 minutes later, a sleek black BMW pulled up beside her. A man got out, probably late 20s, confident, athletic build. She stepped out of her car with a smile on her face. Not a friendly smile. The one she used to give me. She hugged him like she'd forgotten I even existed. He kissed her cheek, and she leaned in like it was the most natural thing in the world. Then they walked off together, hand in hand, toward a trendy little restaurant. I sat there, frozen, my hands clutching the steering wheel, my chest heavy, but my mind clearer than it had ever been. I pulled out my phone, hit record. I captured everything. Her laughing, him opening the door for her walking inside, smiling like she hadn't just been sleeping next to me for the last 3 years. I waited 10 minutes, then got out of the car. Not because I wasn't ready, but because I wanted her to think she was safe. I watched her kiss him. So I walked in, held up my phone, and watched her fantasy shatter. The restaurant she walked into was small, cozy, and dimly lit. The kind of place where couples go when they want privacy and soft music to blur the sounds of guilt. It had that rustic, romantic atmosphere with candles on each table and a warm glow that made everything look intimate. I stood outside a moment longer than I needed to, letting the cold air fill my lungs and keep me from falling apart. My hands were steady, my steps quiet but purposeful. I walked through the door, took a moment to let my eyes adjust to the soft light, and scanned the room slowly. There she was, tucked into a corner booth, her back to the wall, leaning across the table with a wine glass in her hand. Her body language was open, comfortable. The guy was smiling, his hand resting a few inches from hers, close enough that it could have been holding it a moment before. Her eyes were on him, soft, engaged, full of warmth I hadn't seen directed at me in months. And then he reached across the table, brushed a strand of hair from her face with his fingers, and she smiled. Then they kissed. Full on the lips, not a quick peck. A slow, familiar, intimate kiss that wasn't awkward or hesitant. Like they'd done it before. Like it was normal. I raised my phone and started recording again. I didn't feel my chest burn like I thought it would. It wasn't rage. It wasn't even pain. It was something much colder, finality. She had made her choice, and I had my proof. I slipped the phone back into my pocket and started walking toward them. Not fast, not loud. Just enough for her to hear my footsteps. I wanted her to feel secure, to think she'd gotten away with it. I wanted that moment when her illusion cracked to be as real as the betrayal that had been festering between us for months. She looked up, and in that moment, everything about her changed. The smile died on her lips. Her eyes widened. Her hand snapped back from the table like she'd touched fire. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. Or worse, her conscience. "Jack," she whispered, like she couldn't believe I was real. The guy looked up, confused, his smile fading into an uneasy frown. "Everything okay?" he asked, glancing between us. I didn't look at him. Not yet. I focused on her. "Hey, Hannah," I said calmly. "Small world, huh?" She shot to her feet, knocking her knee into the table. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice rising in panic. I didn't answer with words. I pulled out my phone, opened the video, and held it out for her to see. The color drained from her face as she watched herself laugh, lean in, and kiss a man who wasn't me. "Jack, please, it's not what it looks like." But it was. It was exactly what it looked like. Her date was now sitting back, clearly uncomfortable, realizing what he'd walked into. Man, I didn't know she was with someone. I finally turned to him. My voice was calm, measured. "I believe you." But now you do. Then I looked back at Hannah. You made sure to keep that part quiet, didn't you? Tears had started to form in her eyes. Her hands trembled. She was trying to say something, anything, to take it all back. I'm sorry, Jack. I didn't mean for this to happen. It was a mistake. I swear. Things have just been rough lately. I cut her off before she could continue. You think coming home at 3 a.m. smelling like another man is just a rough patch? You think hiding your phone, sneaking around, lying to my face for months, that's a mistake?
No, Hannah.
That's not a mistake. That's a choice. Repeated, deliberate, calculated. She tried to reach out, but I stepped back. She was crying now, her voice shaking, desperate. Jack, I didn't know how to talk to you about how I was feeling. I didn't mean to hurt you. But you did, I said coldly. Over and over. Again. She tried again, her voice barely a whisper. I was confused. I was lonely. I let out a quiet laugh. Confused people don't kiss strangers in candlelit restaurants. They don't hide everything from the person they say they love. You knew what you were doing every step of the way. By then, the room had gone quiet. People were watching. The scene had become a public display, her lie exploding under soft lighting and clinking silverware. She was visibly shaking, trying to piece together an excuse that didn't exist. Her date sat frozen, caught in the middle of a wreck he didn't know he'd helped build. I looked her in the eyes one last time. You looked me in the face and told me I was your life. You said you'd never leave me. I believed you. God, I really believed you. Then I turned around and walked out. I didn't run. I didn't slam the door. I just left her standing there in that cozy little fantasy world she had built on a foundation of lies. I got in my car, drove home, and started packing. The lease was in her name. I wanted nothing from that place anymore.
No memories. No leftover promises.
I left my key on the counter, took my things, and sent her one final text. Don't contact me. We're done. And that was it.
No yelling.
No drama. Just silence. Over the next few weeks, she tried everything: texts, voicemails, emails. Every message started with, "Please let me explain," and ended with, "I miss you." I never replied. She expected me to rage, to cry, to beg. But I gave her none of that. I just walked away. And that's what crushed her the most. A mutual friend told me later that she regretted everything. Said she lost the best thing that ever happened to her. Maybe she did. But that doesn't fix the betrayal. That doesn't reverse the damage. And I don't want to be with someone who only realizes my worth after they've given it away to another man. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. Hit that subscribe button for more stories like this. And remember, sometimes, the strongest thing you can ever do is walk away.